Welcome into a Monday edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Nick Whalen, Alex Barutha here with you as we are each and every Monday throughout the NBA season. We got a fun show coming up. We will review some of our biggest waiver wire targets, players we added, players we just missed adding over the weekend, some injury news, and as always, spend a good portion of the show answering questions from the chat. And I want to hit throughout the show, Alex, on the biggest values so far in fantasy basketball, guys who have been kind of your league winners so far. We are brought to you, as always, by Dabble, by Chalkboard, by Sling. We'll tell you about Sling right off the bat. You tired for paying for live TV that you don't watch? With Sling, you get all the live sports, news, and entertainment you want, only when you want it. Get your hands on a Sling 1 day, 3 day, or 7 day pass starting at just $4.99. You get over 30 of your favorite channels for the best price. You could stop overpaying for full-time live TV plans. Sling has a pass for any occasion. You got a big game tonight, just grab a 1 day pass for $4.99. You want a full week of live TV for one low price, you can grab yourself a 7 day pass. For all those weekend watchers out there, you can enjoy live sports, news, and entertainment from Friday morning to Sunday night with a 3 day pass. Only Sling lets you watch when you want, so you only pay for what you watch. Get live TV for the day, the week, or the weekend, your choice, all for a great price. You can watch live TV on your terms starting at just $4.99. Sling lets you do that. You can check out the link below, whether you're listening in podcast form or watching along here on YouTube. Find all the details on Sling. All right, Alex, let's get into it. Luckily, not a whole lot to recap from an injury perspective. I feel like the last few weeks have been worse. But things have gone from bad to worse for the LA Clippers, who will now be without Ivica Zubac for a few weeks.
Yeah, 3-week injury for Zubac. I think it just is pretty straightforward. They're going to start Brook Lopez, who was getting DMPs very briefly before this. So that is a interesting wrinkle.
Yep.
To me, Lopez is like, if he's going to play 25-ish minutes a game, I think he'll probably be worth rostering in most 12-team leagues, although the field goal percentage and free throw percentage have been really far down this season. But he's going to be better for some fantasy teams than others. Like if you're in a 10-team points league, I don't know if Lopez will even be worth rostering.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this, Alex. In our 15-team staff league, I'm in the market for some centers. I'm done with Jakob Poeltl, who we'll talk about later in the show. The man doesn't play basketball. He attempted to play last night and played like 7 minutes and was ruled out. So I was looking for centers. I looked at Brook Lopez and I think I threw in a $0 keep him honest bid. I'm just not that interested. I think, like you said, the field goal percentage, he doesn't really rebound like you would expect from a center. You're really just chasing blocks at this point. And, he's still blocked enough shots. He's just under 1 per game and pretty limited action. He's only played more than 20 minutes in one game this season. That was the other night against the Lakers with Zubac out. 11 points, 5 rebounds, 2 blocks. If he can give you that with a 3-pointer or 2 every night, I think that's totally fine. I don't think there's a lot of upside beyond that, though.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, he's just not prioritized in the offense beyond, hey, hit these threes. He's just a spot up shooter who blocks shots. Like if you think of Lopez that way, that's a lot better than trying to think of him as like an actual center.
I hate to say this, he's like a worse version of Jay Huff. That's kind of what it is right now.
I thought you were going to say he's a worse version of Miles Turner.
Oh my God. Well, yeah, I don't even think about Miles Turner anymore, who actually has had a couple reasonably okay games by his standards over the last week or so. In terms of waiver wire, it was pretty sparse for me. I was looking for a streamer with Tyler Hero. Who knows if he's going to play this week? That was another just brutal one. I apparently injured his toe, I think, in warmups. Like I had heard nothing about that. Ends up missing the entirety of this past week. Questionable, I think, the Heat play on Tuesday. So I grabbed Alex Caruso, thinking, all right, 4-game week for OKC. He's back healthy, and now he has a finger injury and is not going to play tonight. So that was my big ad of the week in the 15-teamer. We did see Brook Lopez go for $3. We saw Tyler Kolek picked up. Who else? We're going pretty deep here. Yegor Demin, Mamoukalashvili, and Bobby Portis went to you, Alex, for $19.
Why not? That's kind of the point I was at. I was like, I guess Portis shouldn't be on the waiver wire in our 15-team league. And I know he's up and down, but he's had like 4 pretty good games. At least he like picked up his rebounding and the shot attempts have been there, and like Giannis is still going to be out for a while.
Yep.
So, I need big man stats more than anything in that league. And I mean, I was rostering Pat Spencer due to like a 2-game run on, before, but now he's just like, he got Steve Kerr'd.
Yeah.
So he's just done. I picked up Portis.
I mean, he's been on a nice run of late. I had Portis in this league earlier in the season. I even had him on a week when Giannis didn't play, and he saw like only a modest uptick in minutes, had a couple bad shooting nights, and I decided to cut bait. He had been out there really for the first 2 weeks of Giannis being out. Like I think people kind of looked and had the same reaction, but he has now played 39 minutes in back-to-back games. You never know what Doc Rivers is going to do night to night. Sitting Ryan Rollins for huge stretches of yesterday's game was an interesting decision, to say the least. If Bobby Portis is going to play not even 39 minutes, if he can just play like 30 to 32 minutes, I think in a 15-team league, absolutely has to be rostered.
I think so too. And this team is it's a mess. It's a complete disaster. I don't think that necessarily hurts Portis as much as it should. I mean, we know he can put up numbers in limited minutes. He's a high usage guy when Giannis isn't out there. To me, it was just like a pretty simple add given what my roster looked like. I mean, I thought about adding other guys too. Like I tried to add Dylan Cardwell and Kornet just like in case I didn't get, and even Batatse just in case I didn't get the Portis ad.
I tried to add Kornet as well. He was kind of my backup to Caruso. I wanted to slightly prioritize the steals over the blocks. But yeah, Kornet coming off of 20 and 12 in that emphatic win over the Wizards last night. Yeah, give me your thoughts on Dylan Cardwell. Like this is kind of the flavor of the week in terms of unknown Sacramento Kings big men.
Well, I mean, just the fact that he came out first game that he played since November 1st, had 8 and 7 with 3 blocks, followed it up with 4, 8, 5 blocks, then 2 and 4 with 2 blocks. And in this particular league, I am second to last in blocks. And so if you're giving me someone who can put up these kinds of numbers, I'll take it. Because as good as Maxime Reynaud has been playing, I mean, first of all, we should say like Sabonis is out for another month at least.
Right.
And potentially getting traded after that. As good as Reynaud has been, I don't think that the franchise is so committed to playing Maxime Reynaud over Dylan Cardwell if Dylan Cardwell suddenly starts looking awesome.
Not to mention Precious Achiuwa is still in the mix and has started 3 straight games and not played very many minutes in those games. The Kings are a total mess. I was excited a week or two ago when I picked up Malik Monk, thinking like, how is Malik Monk on the waiver wire? I can't believe this. And now he's just picking up DNPs. We're getting cryptic. Is Malik Monk in or out of the rotation commentary from Doug Christie, who kind of was like, yeah, wait and see. I might play him tonight. He did. After 2 straight DNPs, played 5 minutes in their last game.
Yeah, I mean, I had Monk in that league. I dropped him pretty early on, and I'm still hanging on to Schroeder in that league, I guess. Of course, he's on my bench every time he plays well. Yeah, I have no idea what to think of the Sacramento Kings. Like you mentioned, Zach LaVine will be just like out of the lineup. LaVine hasn't played in 3 games.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, like Malik Monk can't get in the game. So I just don't understand what's happening. Like you mentioned, Christie saying stuff like, well, I'm just playing guys who play hard.
Sure.
Okay. Insane.
So I use our 15-team league usually as kind of my baseline, which is a lot deeper than a lot of leagues that listeners and viewers are playing in. You're in a lot more, 10 and 12 teamers. Any other, quote unquote shallower league additions for you this week?
Not too many. I looked into adding Lopez. I will say I think like Isaiah Collier, he's been playing a lot better lately. And we mentioned some other guys with like Kornet, Yegor Demon has had a couple good games in a row. So I think those are the guys that are getting a little more buzz lately.
So we saw the return of Trae Young last week. They had a back-to-back, of course, immediately. So he plays in the Charlotte game, sits out a blowout loss to the Spurs, and then was back out there in like the fantasy game of the year yesterday against the Bulls. That was a 152-150 win for the Chicago Bulls in regulation, by the way. There was no overtime here. Chicago scored 38 points in the first quarter, 45 in the second, 33 in the third, 36 in the fourth. So 152-150. I think the Bulls had 9 players in double figures. It was a little more condensed on the Atlanta side of things. But what have you seen from Trae Young in these first 2 games back? And then want to talk a little bit about Nickeil Alexander-Walker and what we think his role will be.
Yeah, the first game he was pretty passive.
Yeah.
Still got his 10 dimes. This game he just came out firing. Although, I mean, honestly, 15 shots in a game where you score 150 points is not that much. He did get to the free throw line and he hit 7 of 8 from 3. So, like, I think his line ends up obviously looking very good. But yeah, I mean, it so far has not affected Jalen Johnson.
No,
but we'll see. We'll see who else it affects on the team. I mean, mainly Nickeil Alexander-Walker, like you mentioned, and Dyson Daniels.
Yeah, ironically, Jalen Johnson's worst game since Trae Young came back was the game Trae Young didn't play. Now that game against the Spurs, and I do think it matters that he's played against Charlotte and Chicago, and one of those games, was 300 plus total points. But in the 2 games with Trae Young, Jalen Johnson has gone 43, 11 and 9, 36, 11 and 9. So he's doing fine. He's doing just fine. I'm a little more concerned about Alexander Walker, and I think he would be on the list if we're talking about, best values so far, a guy who is going undrafted in a lot of leagues. Maybe he was like your last pick. I took him in our staff league and figured it would be a streaming spot. Maybe you get a week or 2 here and there out of him. I'm still hesitant to drop him. Like that first game that Trae Young played, close game, they ended up losing against Charlotte. He still took 18 shots, still played 34 minutes off the bench, 28 points, 8 rebounds. The defensive stats really haven't been as consistent. I was hoping for more steals out of Alexander Walker, but the scoring has been really consistent. He's taking a ton of threes. Just had a really bad shooting night in the Bulls game last night. They put up 150. He scores 9 points on 3 of 12. Did see a slight reduction in minutes. Like that was the first time since November 12th that he played under 30 minutes. So I am monitoring Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I think in a 10 or a 12 teamer, you're starting to get worried. In a 15 team league, I'm still fairly confidently rostering him for now.
Yeah, I think I would hold at least another week or 2 because, like you mentioned, he had a bad shooting night against Chicago. The stats, like he does see essentially like a 6% usage decrease when he's sharing the court with Trae Young,
right?
Which has only been the case for 96 total minutes this season. So we have seen most of his time without Trae Young, and I think they're going to stagger them. Like I think ideally these guys are not necessarily on the court at the same time.
Right.
I still think Alexander Walker has the potential to put up like 15 to 19 points a game with a few assists. So I would be hanging on. I think maybe more than anything, it's going to be like Risa Shea is probably going to get her. I think Risa Shea and like Vit Krejci and Luke Kennard are going to be hurt way more than Nickeil Alexander-Walker is. Not that people are rostering those guys in fantasy.
Yeah, I think your point about staggering those 2 makes a lot of sense. There'll be times when they're on the court together, but I think he's now your kind of higher end backup point guard. You could play both guard spots, and also worth noting he had 5 fouls in the Chicago game. So if you're looking for a reason for the slight decrease in minutes, that could be it. Anything else waiver wire big stories for the weekend that you want to hit before we get to the chat?
No, I think we covered the wire.
Okay. Well, let's get to it. Good afternoon, guys, says PW516-P. ESPN has labeled Barrett as out for the rest of the season, but I can't seem to find that anywhere. Can you guys shed some light on that?
No idea.
I don't know why he would be labeled as such. He's not labeled as such on our site, on RotoWire. I'll tell you that. In fact, we had an update over the weekend that he has resumed on-court activities. So that appears to be a false flag. I think RJ Barrett should be back, at some point, I would guess early January, maybe even by the end of the month.
I'm looking on ESPN's fantasy website right now. I see him as out, like normal out.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, there we have it. All right. Wemby13 says, hi, guys. Would you trade Dyson and Turner for Trey Murphy? 9-cat 12-teamer.
Is that Dyson Daniels and Miles Turner for Trey Murphy? I would take Trey Murphy. I just, Daniels, like obviously if you like his steals and, he gives you his 12, 6 and 5, whatever. And Turner, you mentioned, has not looked quite as horrible as he had in previous games. I don't know how much I necessarily trust that.
Yeah.
I would rather have Trey Murphy, who's just like a really high level fantasy asset.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough because Turner's value, it seems crazy to say, might be as high as it's been since like the beginning of the year right now, because he's coming off of a massive 13-5-4 and 21-6-2 the game before. He's gone 3 straight games without a block. The rebounding is better than it was when he had 8 or 9 games in a row with 3 or fewer rebounds. But like a volume rebounding game for Miles Turner is like 6 rebounds. Like there are no 9, 10, 11 rebound games for him. You get one of those a month. He's also played 31, 38 minutes over the last 2 games. So again, kind of following suit with Doc, going heavier minutes with some of these big men. I don't know if I trust it. Those were 2 competitive games for the Bucks, which is all well and good. That's not going to be the case every night. You look at his previous, I'll pull his last 12 games. He was averaging 26 minutes per game in that span. So we have a much larger sample to suggest that he's not a 31 to 38 minute guy. So yeah, long story short, I would much rather have Trey Murphy. I still think I'm a little higher on Daniels than you are. I feel like you were kind of the anti-Daniels guy coming into the year, which is not hate for Dyson Daniels. It was more about the price.
It was more about the price. I also look, he's been better. I am, we just talked about Nickeil Alexander-Walker being affected by Trae Young being back, and I think the same will be the case for Dyson Daniels. I just pulled up his numbers right now. 4.5% usage decrease with Trae Young. Here's Dyson Daniels per 75 numbers with Trae Young on the court are 7 points, 3 assists, 7 rebounds. Now some of that is terrible shooting, like horrible shooting, but not what you want to see.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not getting the generational steals, like single-handedly winning you the category, he's giving you 2 per game, which is fine, but that's 1 full steal less than we had last season. It does become a different equation. And Murphy, after a slow start, has played really well. Giannis, by the way, spotted at practice on Saturday. We're getting close to that initial 3-4 week timeline. I don't think it's out of the question that he could be back in the mix maybe sometime next week, maybe even by the end of this week. Bucks play on the road at Indy on Tuesday, at Memphis Friday, at Chicago Saturday, at Charlotte Monday. I guess you typically don't see guys come back, mid-road trip like that.
Yeah.
It's possible when it's someone like Giannis. Their next home game is not until New Year's Eve, the 31st against Washington.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, either way, they need Giannis back. Like if they're trying to trade him, they need to put him on the court. If they're trying not to trade him, they need to play him because the record is horrible. But yeah, it sounds like they're actually trying to be buyers at the deadline now. That's the rumor.
Let's talk about that for a second, by the way. Okay. So on one hand, you have Giannis saying, I don't know what you're talking about. I have not requested a trade. I don't know where this noise is coming from. We need to block out this noise. And then on top of that, you have the Bucks saying they are, quote, going big game hunting. That was the reporting last week. The big game is apparently Zach LaVine, Jeremy Grant, things of that nature.
Right. Yeah. I mean, horrible stuff.
What are we doing?
I mean, that's desperation mode. Yeah. I mean, we're rebranding desperation mode as big game hunting is kind of what's happening here.
It's just not big game. It's not.
No, of course it's not.
Zach LaVine, maybe at one point in his career, like 6 years ago, was big game. Have you watch a lot of Bucks? I watch a lot of Bucks. Do you watch this team and think, man, if they had Zach LaVine, this now then we would really have something here? Absolutely not.
No, the Bucks need defense. That's the thing.
Yeah.
The Bucks. I mean, look, they've been terrible on offense as well without Giannis. But they don't need more offense. Like, that's not the issue. You have Giannis scoring 35 a game. You surround him with shooters. Like, obviously, Turner's been disappointing. But KPJ, Ryan Rollins, like, those guys can score points. Like, the Bucks need to trade for, like, a defender. A good defender. Herb Jones.
Sure.
Which is not possible because the Bucks have no assets. But
I understand that the last thing you want to do is trade Giannis. Like, that just signals an era of your franchise, like the most successful era you've had, arguably ever, but certainly since the late 80s, being over, and it sends you back into the doldrums of being a small market team and playing the lottery. And I get all that. You got to do whatever you can to keep Giannis. I mean, Giannis can't be pushing for Zach LaVine. I hope he's not. I don't know. I guess maybe we did kind of see this with LeBron, like at the end of his Cleveland run, right? It was like, yeah, you give me Jay Crowder, you give me Isaiah Thomas. Look, that's what it feels like to me. It's just obvious desperation. And I like for a long time, I think we considered the Bucks, a really shrewd, smart front office. I still think that's there. But if you think Zach LaVine or Jeremy Grant are changing the fortunes of this team, I don't see it.
I don't either.
Okay. All right. We'll refocus here. We have another separate trade question involving both Miles Turner and Trey Murphy. Here's a 3-for-3 deal. So Miles Turner, Miles Bridges, and Jalen Brunson for Trey Murphy, Kawhi Leonard, and Jay Huff. Which side are you on?
I think this is a very even deal. Because you and I talk about Kawhi deals all the time. And if you assume Bridges is like the Kawhi swap, and I think you and I actually talked about a Bridges for Kawhi swap, and that was pretty even. And then you assume it's sort of like Murphy for Brunson, Huff for Turner. I mean, this is a really even deal. I don't even know if I have a preference to the side other than I would probably just prefer Turner, Bridges, Brunson because it doesn't involve Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah. Unfortunately I agree. I think you're inheriting more risk with the second group of players. I love Trey Murphy. He's one of my favorite players in the NBA. He also plays for one of the worst teams in the NBA. And, I don't think he's a huge shutdown risk just because the Pelicans are losing plenty of games with him out there. But to me, Jalen Brunson is probably the most bankable asset in this trade. And if it's close, I want that guy. I want the guy who could just give me 47 on any given night, who plays a ton of games, who's in a competitive situation. Like there are all three players on the other side of that deal. Murphy plays for a terrible team, could be some missed games at the end of the year because of that. Kawhi is Kawhi, one of the 5 riskiest players in fantasy. And then, I love Jay Huff. It's been great. There's no level of investment in Jay Huff. There were reports, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, that the Pacers were looking for an upgrade at center. They're another team that when they hit a certain point, maybe they do start focusing on the lottery. So I think in a vacuum, it is a really even deal for like the next month. But I think the Murphy Kawhi Huff side to me is a lot riskier.
For sure.
Okay. Just traded Brandon Ingram for Shaedon Sharpe and Brandon Miller. Is this a W or an L?
I think this is a fine deal. I mean, Sharpe has been balling lately. He finally, I mean, he had been scoring a lot earlier. The fact he's just been a lot more efficient lately.
Yeah.
And, Brandon Miller started to pick it back up a little bit again. I still think Brandon Miller is a buy low, although I worry about his shooting percentage this season with the shoulder. Like I think it's still bothering him. But I think that's a good trade. Yeah.
I think it's fine. Yeah, with Miller, you're still like you'll get 2 really good games, and then you'll get a 4 of 16 from the field, and he's still shooting 37% from the field. So, part of this would maybe depend on your league format. I'd be a little bit skittish on him in a category league. But I know you have a decent amount of Brandon Ingram. I believe you have him in the RotoWire staff league. I don't know if he's like one of the biggest values of the season, but this has been a really, really nice, first 30% of the year for him.
No problem. With what he's brought so far. I mean, he's just putting up Brandon Ingram numbers, fewer assists than he has throughout his career, but we were projecting that in, I think, just given the amount of other playmakers on this team. So I think he's having a really strong year. The only thing I think you have to worry about, and you made this trade, you don't have to worry about it anymore, but he always gets hurt. Like he never plays more than 65 games. So that's kind of what I'm waiting for, but he's been playing well so far.
Hasn't missed a single game yet. That was the reason he was being drafted where he was. I mean, we kind of forget like he hadn't played in forever. Right? He played 18 games last year, and never played after the trade last season. That's been a big hit. I mean, he's top 30 guy in terms of total value thanks to all those games played. Another trade question here: should I trade Devin Booker for Norman Powell and OG Anunoby in a 9-cat league?
I would not do that. Booker to me is like he's too elite to trade for that, even though a lot of times I do prefer the 2 guys to 1, but Booker's just too good in my opinion.
I love Anunoby a ton. Going to be sitting out tomorrow night, by the way. I just saw that come through, both he and Brunson, in what appears to be somewhat of a load management situation ahead of Christmas Day. Yeah, it's tough. I think you're right. I think Booker is in that category of sometimes you just don't want to give up the best player in the deal. But if you're having depth issues, if you have like a spot or 2 in your lineup where like I can't keep starting these guys, I need to do a 1 for 2. I don't think this is egregious. Like Norman Powell has for the most part continued his production. Now Hero has also missed a ton of time since returning, so we still don't. I feel like we don't really have like a nice 2-week sample of what that's going to look like.
Yeah, and Booker went through a really tough stretch in November, like right before he got hurt. He was putting up terrible numbers, like 19 points on 36% shooting. But since he's come back from injury, he's played a lot better. And we know who Devin Booker is, so that doesn't worry me long term.
All right, here's a great one because we talk all the time about this idea of getting off of LaMelo Ball, getting off of Kawhi, getting off of Embiid, and then we always come down to like, well, I don't really know what I would trade him for. We got proof right here. Our question asker Jackson says, just traded Embiid for PJ Washington and Sadiq Bey. How did I do?
See, this is exactly the type of players we've always talked about as like who you can trade for if you have Embiid, which is like these are back end starters in fantasy basketball.
Yeah.
And you got 2 of them, and chances are you'll start these guys every time they have a 3-game week. I like it, honestly. I would be trying to get off Embiid if I had him, and I think I would accept this deal. I don't know how much of a better offer you're honestly getting from anybody.
Yeah, this is a kind of a market setter. I think this feels really low. 2 borderline starter types, but this is what you're probably gonna have to take to get off of Embiid, who, I mean, did play 3 games in a row at one point earlier this month. Has now missed 2 in a row, dealing with the illness. This isn't going to get better with Embiid. I don't think as he gets older, this knee issue is magically going to disappear. What should I do with Sabonis? Do I trade him for a player like McCollum? Is that a good idea?
You can't trade him for McCollum because when Washington at the deadline, McCollum's not going to be playing for this team, and he'll probably get bought out and play for, I don't know, who, Orlando and
the Bucks.
Right, big game hunting. So I would not do it for McCollum because of that reason.
Yeah.
But if the question is more like, should I trade him for like this sort of fringe starter caliber guy? I think you could shoot a little higher than like the McCollum stat archetype.
Yeah.
Maybe not though. I mean, McCollum's averaging 19, 3, and 3. And I don't know what's going to happen with Sabonis. But I would think you could aim a little bit higher than this in terms of stat profile.
I think so too. I mean, it's tough right now because the news of 4 to 5 more weeks at least is still fresh. And I think that's kind of a catalyst for you. If you have him, you want to get off of him, but presumably other people in your league are aware of this, so you're definitely going to have to sell at a discount if you want to go in that direction. But yeah, I think McCollum is the right type of player. He is not the guy that I would be targeting for Sabonis unless for some reason, like maybe you have another player coming back later who you feel good about, and you just, because I think there's another month probably of McCollum putting up these numbers. But I'm with you. I'm surprised he's played as much as he has. Like, he's missed almost no games, right? I thought there would be a lot more frequent rest. I thought they'd be handling him like they're handling Middleton, and they're not.
Right.
Adam King, who you can hear on this very podcast this week, asked, any interest in Noah Penda as a speculative short-term ad?
Yeah, he seems to be able to put up some numbers. I mean, his per 36, he's turned into one of these per 36 guys, right? 15 and 14 with 4 assists, 1.2 blocks, 1 steal, 1.9 threes. Those are his per 36. That's amazing, amazing stuff. Yeah, I mean, look, if Wagner's out,
right,
Suggs is dealing with his own injury. So why not? I mean, if you're talking about a short-term ad, go for it, because the dude can put up stats. He doesn't need a lot of minutes to do so.
It is a 4-game week for Orlando. They have 2 back-to-backs. They play Golden State, Portland, Monday, Tuesday, and then Charlotte, Denver at home Friday, Saturday. So that's part of it. I think the question is, does Tristan Da Silva have to continue to miss time for him to be relevant? Because Da Silva's missed the last 2 games, including, the 13-12, 4-2-2 game against Utah the other night. And Da Silva's questionable to play tonight. Like, if he comes back, does that just erase this?
I don't know if it does, because Da Silva has not been playing well. The past 10 games for Da Silva, he's shooting 35% from the field. And the thing is, he was playing well this season. Like the sort of thing about Da Silva, it's like, oh, look, this guy's shooting really well. He's not a shooter though. That was the issue coming into the draft, was that, oh, well, great, everyone likes Da Silva, but he can't shoot. So like he was kind of hot to start the year, and now he's regressing. So I think even if De Silva comes back, there's a chance that we just keep getting that Penda can keep playing.
Yeah. All right, we'll take a quick break to tell you about a couple of our sponsors, and we'll get back to some questions in the chat. We're brought to you once again this week by Chalkboard. You can cash in on your NBA picks this season with Chalkboard. Simply choose more or less on your favorite player's stats. You can win up to 5,000 times your money. For a limited time only, new players receive a free pick and a 100% deposit match. You can see why over 1 million fans have already locked in with Chalkboard to turn their sports knowledge into cold, hard cash. Whether you're locking in the perfect slip with alternate lines, using the cash out feature to take your money and run, or hammering the daily promos, today is your chance to win up to $40,000 on a single entry. Stop sitting on the sidelines. Get into the game with Chalkboard Fantasy Sports, now available in 30-plus states. Download Chalkboard today. Use the promo code ROTONBA, ROTONBA. Put that in. You get a free pick and a 100% deposit match. We're also brought to you by Dabble. Dabble is not just another DFS app. It's the ultimate social platform where you can connect with other fantasy sports lovers. Dabble lets you win big. You can win up to 5,000 times your money this fantasy basketball season. Starting with Dabble is easy. New users get $25 free just for signing up. No deposit necessary. You can check out the link in the episode description below to download Dabble now. All right, back to the chat where we have some really good questions, as always, stacking up. Appreciate those from our live viewers over on YouTube. Hey, guys, looking into trading Jalen Johnson for a top 5 player. Was thinking Jalen in Banchero for SGA. Is this something I should do?
Jalen and Banchero for SGA. I think I would still prefer to have Jalen Johnson and Paolo Banchero. I mean, that's just a lot of numbers you're giving up. Like that's sort of my concern, right? It's just the sheer volume of stats you're giving up by letting those guys go is huge.
Yeah. I know, Banchero's fantasy rank versus his profile as a player and like the counting stats don't really match up because he's shooting it so badly from 3. He's not really giving you enough threes for that to matter. The free throw percentage is a problem. He's under 44% from the field. Like there are obvious caveats here. He's also coming off a 23, 9-9 with 2 blocks, 26, 16, and 10 with the steal. Like Jalen Johnson is the number 6 player per game in fantasy this season. I think Banchero is too big of an asset to attach as a sweetener. Like you could maybe get that deal done by trading the next or even next best player on your roster, if that makes sense.
It's possible. I mean, I almost think guys like SGA are just like, it's almost impossible to trade for them. But I think, I don't think I would give up this much for him.
Yeah. We'll hit this one quickly. We did talk a little Lopez at the start of the show, but thoughts on Brook Lopez as a replacement for Zubac. We basically said if the minutes are there, which they should be, you could expect lower end points. You get 1 to 3 threes. You get 4, 5, 6 rebounds, and then hopefully you're getting a block and a half, maybe 2 blocks on a good week per game. And I think that's kind of who Brook Lopez has been. I guess the question is like Kornet versus Lopez. Are there any other, like if you're looking for a big man specifically, are there other semi-widely available centers who you would take over Lopez?
I don't think I would like massively prioritize Lopez over Kornet, for example.
Yeah.
Because Lopez is not giving you those rebounds. To me, maybe the best way to put it is like Lopez to me is a pure category add. Like if you don't need his threes and if you don't need his blocks, you don't have to add him.
Right.
He's just not going to be like that good.
Yeah, there are certain guys who the minutes just don't necessarily lead to the production that you would like. Again, if I were adding Lopez, I'd be in it for the blocks specifically. And you get a couple threes, but probably not enough that it makes a huge difference. All right, Matt says, how do you like Hugo Gonzalez if Walsh is out? Is he worth a stream?
I think Walsh is out. I mean, it's worth a stream. I mean, when Gonzalez plays minutes, he puts up numbers for the most part. Like he'll have some bad games. Obviously, like his offense is pretty come or go, but he can grab rebounds, good steals, hustles really hard. Not like a priority streamer for me.
Yeah.
Because he is relatively limited, but a decent streamer. Yeah.
Yeah, so confirming Walsh is out tonight with an illness. Good matchup against the Pacers. I think it's reasonable. I think it's a reasonable stream if we're just talking one game. Excuse me. All right, should we drop Nurkic or Kalkbrenner for Tari Eason? This is a 9-cat league. I don't trust Kalk's production even as a starter with fluctuating minutes. Nurkic also starting to sit out random games. We did get that with Lauri Markkanen last week as well. I know he's going to be back out there tonight, but going down that same path, it feels again for the Utah Jazz. So basically, are we dropping Nurkic or Kalkbrenner to pick up someone like Tari Eason?
I have a hard time dropping Nurkic still. I don't know if this is like some sort of internal bias. It's just hard. It's hard because when he plays, I'm a big Nurkic guy. I mean, when he plays, he puts up numbers. Like the numbers don't always make sense. 4, 8, and 5, and 1 in 21 minutes. I guess.
Hey, it adds up.
To me, I want to ride the Nurkic thing out as long as possible. Kalkbrenner, though, yeah. I mean, we've kind of been going down this road for a while, which is like, is Ryan Kalkbrenner a must roster player? And I don't think he is for a lot of people. So if you want to drop Kalkbrenner for Tari Eason, I think I'm fine with that.
All right, I have to get Donovan Mitchell off IL. Who do I drop in order to do that? Podziemski, Clowney, Gillespie, or Maxime Reynaud. This is a 12-team 9-cat head-to-head, and he says his squad is weak in assists, steals, and blocks.
This is a tough call. Yeah. I don't think you can drop Reynaud because of the Sabonis situation.
Right.
This is probably Podziemski, and Podziemski's a hard guy to drop because he just hangs around. Like he just always hangs around with his net. Just when you're ready to drop Podziemski,
100%.
Just when you're ready to drop him, 14, 5, and 6. You were going to drop me, but and I'm not even really. I mean, I was a Noah Clowney guy. Now I'm kind of not. It's just his efficiency is terrible. But if he's going to play this much, he's been blocking shots lately. I don't think you can drop Clowney. So I think it's Podziemski.
Yeah, currently it's Podziemski. I guess what I would ask is, do we consider Gillespie, who's putting up some of the best numbers of this group? But Jalen Green has vowed to be back before the end of December. Grayson Allen's missing a bunch of time. Like there could be a fall coming for him.
There could be, but he's playing so well. I still think it's possible we see falls from other guys.
Yeah.
It's just it would be hard for me to drop him over Pods. I would wonder, like if your league is active in the trade market, I would think about maybe trading, because to me, with these 4 guys, like your team is a little deep. I would maybe try to package a couple guys and trade for one player.
Any word on Luka? This is presumably Luka Doncic. Garza coming off a nice game the other night. Luka went out against the Clippers. That was just, kind of a disaster game for the Lakers. They made a couple runs at a potential comeback late in the game. Couldn't quite do it. They called it a leg contusion for Luka, which I think is good news. Doesn't sound like anything overly serious. Lakers are off tonight. They play at Phoenix tomorrow. I guess I could see them maybe holding him out on a precautionary basis in the Phoenix game to make sure he's out there Christmas Day against Houston. But no real update quite yet. Lakers injury reports tend to come a little bit later in the day. I traded away Norman Powell and Emmanuel Quickley for Cade Cunningham in a 10-team points league. My low-end players were Knueppel and Quickley, and made the trade to make way for an eventual Mobley return from IL. What are your thoughts?
No problem with that. Cade's an elite player. So there's again, I usually like the side where you get 2 players, but when we're talking about elite players, I just want that guy. So and Powell and Quickley, we'll see what happens with Powell. I don't know. Those guys are fine, but they're not Cade.
Yeah. All right. This is just a vintage Barutha question. How would you rank these guys rest of season in a 10-team points league? Mitchell Robinson, Noah Clowney, Jay Huff, Jordan Walsh.
Clowney number 1, then Huff for sure.
Come on.
What do you mean? Come on.
You don't want 2 to 4 blocks every single night?
Well, Clowney's been giving you 1 to 2 blocks every night. He also he scores points. Mitchell Robinson and Walsh. That's actually difficult because Walsh remembered he couldn't shoot. and now it just kind of averages like 6 points. And Mitchell Robinson is just like so in and out of the lineup that it's hard to trust. So to me, those guys are like kind of a wash, actually.
Yeah, do we factor in the Tatum thing at all? If we are truly talking rest of season with Jordan Walsh,
maybe. And honestly, you know, Robinson's playing a little more than I thought he was. So yeah, give me Robinson. Robinson number 3. So Clowney, Huff, Robinson, Walsh.
Okay, here's a fun question, kind of a roster evaluation question. So I have Cade, I have Giddey, I have Derek White, all point guard. Should I trade one, or is this a formidable trio?
It is a formidable trio. I would
Yeah.
just keep them. Why not? What's the harm? I mean, unless you're like so stacked in assists or something that it's like it doesn't. You're like doing too well, and you should diversify your stats. And I think there's no reason for you to trade them.
Yeah, I think you got some nice complementary pieces here, right? You're getting the high volume threes from Derek White. You're getting the high volume counting stats from the other two. You know, Derek White is still shooting 39% from the field, but it's going up and up. Like he's shooting it significantly better than he was early in the season. Giddey's a good field goal percentage guy. Yeah, I don't have a problem with this group.
Yeah, these guys are not similar players at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they don't play at all alike. So to me, it doesn't matter that they're all point guards.
All right, we have a Bam Adebayo question, kind of taking a look at his rest of season value. Kendrick here says, it seems like it fluctuates too much, especially with the development of Khalil Ware. And essentially, should I look to trade Bam, or should I expect him to pick it up and be more consistent?
I don't necessarily think you should expect him to be more consistent. This is kind of who he's been. Like he's just not you know, he's shooting a lot more threes now. The threes have not been hitting lately. That's been a big problem. When those start to hit again, I think it'll look better. I don't think I would look to trade him though. You can if you want. If you're asking like on the whole, like if you look at his numbers on the entire season, I guess is maybe is a better question. And if you're expecting it, you know, should you expect those to get better? Probably not.
All right, we talked Jalen Johnson trades earlier in the show, but here's a 1-for-1. Would you trade him for Alperen Şengün in a points league?
No, I don't think I would.
So.
No,
it's defensible. If you're really worried about the Trae Young thing, I'm not that worried about it. I think Jalen Johnson is their best player at this point. Who would you take right now in a 10-team ESPN points league? Najee Marshall or PJ Washington?
I think PJ Washington.
I think
it's kind of shocking to me that like Washington and Najee Marshall and Cooper Flagg and Anthony Davis and Daniel Gafford, like they're all playing.
Yeah.
We kind of knew this would be the case. To me, they're pretty close, but I prefer Washington.
Yeah, a little more bankable, I think, with Washington, but good luck. Good luck parsing through the Mavs front court rotation. All right, we have a dynasty question. Would you put Dylan Harper or Trey Murphy in the top 25 in terms of ESPN points league? So rankings for dynasty.
I looked this up. I actually looked up where we have them in our keeper rankings, and we basically both have them around 50 right now. But our keeper rankings are probably shaded more towards win now than a lot of other keeper rankings. Like when we make our keeper rankings, we are kind of looking at a 3-year window,
right?
Unless it's like a Cooper Flagg, you know what I mean? So I think you could easily say that those guys are top 25 rebuilding assets. Yeah.
Oh, no question. No question. Yeah. I think you explained it well because, and it's different from like dynasty football where windows just tend to be shorter. You know, it's not super often that you have a running back who is like elite for 6 straight years. You know, it's like those guys have like a 3 to 5 year window, and you know, a 28-year-old running back is valued way differently than a 21-year-old rookie. Whereas in the NBA, especially the way players are kind of extending careers now, you know, like a 19-year-old Dylan Harper versus like a 27-year-old established star, not that big of a difference because you might have 8 more years of elite production out of that star. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think you could value both of those guys as top 25 assets, because I think that you can even look at it as a scenario of like, are these guys going to be, all-star caliber players. And I think they both project that way. I mean, Trey Murphy plays like an all-star level. Dylan Harper projects to be an all-star level player. So I think that's fine.
Yeah, Murphy is the one that I think would be a little tougher just because, like, kind of in a bad situation that doesn't seem like it's getting better anytime soon. He has had some injuries, and doesn't have the same kind of draft buzz right now. Like Dylan Harper was top 3 pick. Like that's going to stick with him in a way that it doesn't for a guy who was a mid first rounder. But yeah, it really depends on how you're framing those rankings. Like there's just so much talent. There are so many really good productive players in the league right now that if you're sitting down and saying, all right, how do I rank these guys for the next 3 years? It might seem crazy that Dylan Harper wouldn't be in the top 30 or top 40, but there's just a lot of dudes. There's a lot of dudes who aren't falling off anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at ours right now. Number 25, Jalen Brown. It's like we take both those guys over Jalen. Above them, Giddey. We should probably move down Sabonis. But like Donovan Mitchell, Tyrese Halliburton, Devin Booker, Jalen Johnson, Jalen Williams, Scotty Barnes, Jason Tatum, LaMelo Ball. Like, it's hard to be a top 25 dynasty asset, but I think you could probably squeeze those guys in there.
All right, we'll do a few more here. What do you think about Mikal Bridges' trade value right now? Yahoo rankings say he's ranked 9, but is it fair to ask for a top 25 player for him in a trade? He is an interesting guy when you look at the season-long rankings. For instance, by our site, he is also ranked 9, but he always gets a boost because he never misses games, which does matter. Like that's, it throws off the per game versus the total production. But part of the reason I love rostering Mikal Bridges is you never have to worry about a 4-game week turning into a 3-game week. So that is part of the sell. But he doesn't carry the profile of a top 25 player in the NBA. So I guess if you're looking to get off of Mikal Bridges, which I wouldn't necessarily be trying to do right now, but if you are, what zone are we looking at?
I mean, over the past month per game, he's ranked 34th. And it's huge. I mean, he's playing great defense, really efficient shooting, has brought more to his offensive game, like passing. But yeah, if you're asking, like, is it fair to ask for a top 25 player? Like, yeah, I think you can ask for a top 25 player and see what you end up getting. You can always work around a trade after that, but it might be hard to get a top 25 player, but you can ask.
Yeah, it's tough because there are a lot of nights, with how much talent the Knicks have where he feels marginalized. He's not taking that many shots. It's just a lot of, spot up threes. But what he gives you, again, in terms of the games played and the consistency plus the steals and blocks, like I believe he's top 5 in the NBA. I'm trying to do mental math right now, which is not my strong suit in steals plus blocks. He's 3rd in steals behind Case and Wallace, who's got 66, by the way.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Which is wild. 59 for Daniels, 48 for Bridges, and then he has 28 blocks on top of that. Like everyone else, essentially, who is near the top of the league in steals is giving you nothing in terms of blocks. So I would be cautious. Like, yeah, you could land a bigger name. You could land a bigger points, rebounds, assist guy for Bridges, but it will be difficult, I think, to replace that consistent defensive production. Should I look to trade Jimmy Butler?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't like drafting him. And part of the reason he is always a discount on draft day is because he just gets hurt. And he's actually been pretty healthy this year, but he hasn't. I don't know. I almost feel like his reputation in real life has fallen a lot. Like I see Warriors fans on Twitter being like, I cannot stand this Jimmy Butler. Like, get this guy off the team. Like, this sucks. But in fantasy basketball, he has been pretty much the same guy he was last year. I'm fine with trading him because I think maybe is a ticking time bomb from an injury standpoint.
I mean, he's the same guy as last year, but he's shooting 15 percentage points better from 3. So, the percentages across the board are better. He's still giving you 1.5 steals. Like, I think if you drafted Jimmy Butler, which I did not either, because of the history, the age, and all that, this has been like the best case scenario start for you. He's missed like 4 or 5 games the entire time. You always do wonder if the injury is coming, if the crash is coming. But the Warriors also, like the way the Warriors are playing right now, I think benefits Jimmy Butler. Like, it's really tough for them to just give him a night off here and there because they cannot afford to lose more ground.
Yeah.
All right. Another Miles Turner question. I'm in a points league. Would you drop or trade Miles Turner?
I would look to trade him. I still think he has enough
Yeah.
name recognition. He's coming off a couple good games, so I think people might be at least interested.
Yeah. Kyle Filipowski, is he still a hold?
Probably. I mean, the way they're treating Lauri Markkanen, Filipowski had like a stretch of 5 games where he played really well. Now the minutes are kind of weird. Had a decent game. I would probably hold another week if you can, but honestly, I don't blame you if you have to drop him. Like if you're really struggling in your league and you just need production. But the way they're going back and forth with some of these guys, Markkanen in particular, I think I would like to see how much Filipowski plays.
Thoughts on Jakob Poeltl and his back? Any word on the severity? And is Sandro Mamukelashvili a hold, or are we streaming that spot? Well, I have Jakob Poeltl. It's been horrible. I can see right now somebody is currently writing an update on Jakob Poeltl on our site, so I will keep you posted on that when it's posted. He's been dealing with the back thing really since like the first week of the season. He played in the first 4 games, missed a stretch of 3 games, started sitting out back-to-backs, missed 2 games coming off of a 3-day break, which the alarm bells were starting to go off middle of last week when it's like, all right, he should be completely healthy here. There's no back-to-back. He's well rested. Sat out against Milwaukee, sat out 2 nights later against Boston, was out there yesterday against Brooklyn, played 7 minutes, and apparently tweaked his back. I don't feel great about this for a guy who was already dealing with that issue. I would say it's very unlikely that he plays tomorrow. Who knows about Friday? But it's now to the point where this is going to be in the back of your mind the entire season. And speaking from experience, like if you're in a weekly league, it's not fun locking in a guy, especially if it's a 3-game week and you're like, oh man, if this becomes a 2 or a 1-game week, I'm really in trouble here. I would look to offload him if you can. The Mamukelashvili part of it, I think we see how this goes. Like if we very well could get a report, in the coming days that they just rule Poeltl out for 2 to 4 weeks or something like that. In which case, I think Mamu becomes appealing. Completely different type of player from Poeltl. Like you're not going to get necessarily consistent blocks and steals. The rebounding volume could fluctuate. They have a lot of big forwards, good rebounders on that team. But you get some threes. You should still get a decent field goal percentage. It's still probably more of a streaming spot to me, but I'm happy to fill that temporarily with Mamukelashvili.
I echo pretty much everything you said. The thing with Poeltl, like when people were asking about him earlier because of his back, I was like, well, NBA Cup schedule, light week. They can give him a bunch of time off, rest him. Just wait until you just wait until, the schedule picks back up. And obviously we're here. Mamu's pretty good.
He is.
You don't have to hold him, but I wouldn't mind hanging on.
All right. So I traded Josh Giddey and Andrew Nembhard for Devin Booker. Your thoughts in a 9-cat league?
Giddey and Nembhard for Booker. I think that's a solid deal. Yeah, I mean, I'm partial to Josh Giddey. We'll see what happens with Nembhard down the stretch and the Pacers.
Right.
But I do also think Booker is a buy low. Yeah, I think it's a pretty fair deal.
Yeah, I think especially if you need points, if you need assists, Nembhard is certainly providing those. You're not necessarily getting the efficiency. He's just had some very weird games, lately, weird stretches where he'll look incredible one night and then terrible the next night. You're going to have to, you're going to get the 10 for 18 shooting nights, and then you're going to get 3 for 14. You're going to get 12 for 19 the next night, and then 2 for 11. But I do worry a little bit long term. I think the implication, and we mentioned this with the Pacers earlier, is that at some point, if they do go into shutdown mode, I think he would be on the list. At the same time, they're 6-22. It's kind of a free roll season, right? It's like, I think it would be more about preservation than, hey, we can't have Nembhard out here. We're going to win too many games.
Yeah, probably.
All right, we'll wrap things up here, Alex. Real quickly though, throughout the show we kind of sprinkled in a few of the best values of the season. I think Keyonte George, by the way, needs to be mentioned there. I just really wish I had more Keyonte George in my life, as I'm sure you do as well. But across your various teams, who have been those guys? Who have been the big risers, the big value hits for you?
I think Kevin Porter Jr. I mean, obviously there's some circumstances with Giannis and stuff that have allowed him to play better, but I think he's been awesome. Drew Holiday before he got hurt was a nice flyer at the end of drafts. Michael Porter Jr. has been fantastic. Again, I think he's kind of a ticking time bomb in terms of his injuries, but like he's been healthy. I wish Edey was healthy because he looked like he was going to have like a monster season.
Yeah.
And then also, I mean, this is a little bit further down, but like Keyshawn George, I know he's not been playing quite as hot as he was to begin the year, but he's still playing really well overall, and someone that I think will only get better after the deadline.
Yeah, I know Khalil Ware has been frustrating, and it's like in weekly lineup leagues, if you throw him out there on the wrong week, it feels like he's not playing well. On balance, the numbers are really, really good. The big jump in free throw percentage has been huge for him, still giving you like 1.5 blocks. So everything is averaged out to a really nice year. I don't often say this about rookies. Kon Knueppel totally missed the boat on that. I mean, that has just been, a godsend in fantasy, and I don't necessarily think that's going anywhere. Whatever shakeup may be coming for the Hornets, I don't think that's going to negatively impact Knueppel.
No, man. I think he can just play wherever. I mean, because he can get his shot. He can play with the ball. He can play without the ball. He can stand in the corner. He can run in transition. He can do everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Jaden McDaniels is somebody, he's like a junior version of Mikal Bridges. Like he's not lighting the world on fire by any means, but plays every single night. Anytime Edwards or Randall are out, you're probably getting a splash game out of him. He's somebody I certainly wish I had more of. Do we have to mention Russell Westbrook?
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
He's been amazing.
Unfortunately, I think we do. Onyeka Okongwu has been another guy who I think very quietly is having a really, really nice season on balance. Hasn't really missed any time.
Yeah, Okongwu, I mean, obviously there was some worry with Porzingis coming in.
Yeah, wow.
We should have been more worried about Porzingis, and we were. But yeah, I mean, the fact that even when Porzingis is in there, Okongwu is playing a decent amount. So yeah, he's played really well.
Yeah, the last guy I'll mention is Jamal Murray, who has just been super, super consistent throughout his prime. It's like 20 points, 4 rebounds, maybe 5-6 assists, and does it every single year. You kind of worry about missed time. He has been fantastic. I think Denver has kind of been on the back burner, just being Denver. Everybody talks about Jokic, but I mean, Murray is up 3.5 points per game. His rebounding is up. He's up, over, 0.7 assists more than last year. The steals are still sustaining. One full made 3-pointer more than last season. He's shooting almost 50% from the field. Once again, elite at the free throw line on a career high number of attempts. I think that's gone a little bit undercovered, just how good he's been.
It has. I mean, the injuries, derailed a couple of seasons from him in fantasy, but I think he's been one of the most underrated fantasy players to draft, like maybe throughout most of his career. Yeah. He's been just completely steady as like, oh, it's the 4th round or the 3rd round. Yeah. I guess I could draft Jamal Murray. Yeah.
All right, there we have it. Appreciate everybody watching along, listening along, especially those of you who watch on YouTube. If you're here, give the video a like. Make sure you're subscribed to the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball channel. 4 episodes per week, streaming and archived here on the YouTube channel. We'll have a couple more coming your way before Christmas. But enjoy the holidays. We appreciate all the audience participation, all the great questions every week, and we'll be back at it next Monday.